Hi, I'm Susan Peterson, and you are listening to Started from the Bottom, an entrepreneur-focused podcast on getting started. Here you will find all the mindset tools and resources you need to just get started. Kat Kennedy.
Hello.
Welcome to Started from the Bottom.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're here.
Anytime I get to be with you, I'm pumped.
I know.
So-
We don't see each other nearly enough.
No, but when I do, I'm like, yay.
Yay.
Here.
Okay, I'm going to read your bio real quick. Kat Kennedy is passionate about building products, companies, and the startup ecosystem as a whole. Before joining Kickstart as a general partner, Kat was president and CXO of Degreed, a company dedicated to changing how people develop skills, build expertise, and grow their careers. She was instrumental in driving Degreed's growth, shaping its product and culture, and deepening its client relationships. Kat's 15 years of operating experience gives her a unique perspective as an investor, one that allows her to not only spot talented entrepreneurs from all backgrounds, but also to serve as a mentor, fostering innovation through every stage of the company's growth. Jeez, girl. That's a good bio.
There's a lot of tongue twisters in there just to make it fun.
Fun to read.
Yeah. So
You hand this
when
out
I
to
get
everyone?
awkward and people read my bio, I'm like, but they're having to trip over those words.
Yeah, no, did I try? I did pretty good.
You did amazing.
Yeah, smooth sailing.
Yeah. Very articulate.
Okay, Kat, how'd you get started in your career?
How did I get started? It feels like a million different serendipitous moments.
Uh-huh.
And I was raised on a cattle ranch, had a teacher that introduced me to computer science, and I fell in love with it. And then went to Utah State, was studying information systems, which is this mix of business and computer science. And I was sitting in a finance class, and the guy sitting next to me was like, "Hey, do you have a job?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Do you want a job?" I'm like, "Sure, sounds cool. What's the job?" And he was like, "Well, web development at this agency." And I was like, "Well, I know a little bit, but not a ton." And he's like, "Cool, we'll train you." So I just sat by the right person in class and then went and worked for, it was called Evidence Media up in Logan. And I have no idea what they are called today. And the owner of that studio taught me like the intricacies of web development. So I got started just randomly through computer science, where I knew enough that it seemed exciting, and then sitting by someone in a finance class that, like, for some reason found it necessary to propose a job to me out of nowhere. And I fell in love with web development and continued to do that for the entirety of the time I was at Utah State. Got a job at an advertising agency out of school down here in Salt Lake City, and then went on to work for the LDS Church. And I could have worked as a software developer for the entirety of my life. I loved it, just creating and building and shipping new things that like were just ideas in someone's head, and you can make them somewhat real through code. And I got introduced to a founder about 2 years into my stint at working for the LDS Church, and he pitched this idea of this business that he wanted to create and build a software product to go alongside it, where we could recognize individuals for their skills and education, no matter what that education looked like. And initially it was in order to disrupt the college degree, because so many people go to college and don't finish. And the trouble with the credential is it's binary. You either get it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And there's so many inherent problems to that. And given the circumstances that I grew up in, very few people get their college degree. And I saw a lot of people who often would even verbally articulate how much they felt gated from opportunity because they didn't have their degree. So it resonated so deeply and personally with me, this solution that he proposed. And I was like, cool, I'm in. And I had no idea what I was in for. The concept of venture capital and startups were like not even a thing in my head. I had no idea. I thought if you called yourself a business, you had revenue, which is really great to think back on now.
Especially in tech.
But I believed in him and I believed in the vision, and I joined them as their first employee, and that company was Degreed, and the founder was David Blake and Eric Sharp, his co-founder. And we built this company into something that was real. So I spent 10 years there, joined as first employee as a web developer, and then left as president and CXO. And along the way, not only did I learn a lot about venture-backed startups, but I learned a lot about venture capital and raising venture capital.
How many rounds did you guys raise at Degrade?
We had Series D, but Series C had C1, C2, C3. So I think there was about 6 months at Degrade where we technically weren't fundraising.
Oh my God.
So the entirety of my time there, we were always out raising capital.
Building decks and
raising
it.
And fostering relationships. And that was my favorite part of the job. I loved both finding the story that would resonate and then evolving that story and making sure that that always mapped to how we were executing the business.
Yeah.
And so it was through raising money at Degree that I really got to know venture capital and the business of venture capital and what those investors are looking for. And by so doing, fell in love with it and thought one day I want to do that job, but it was very much a one day thing.
Yeah, sure.
I thought I would stay at Degree until she saw whatever exit it turned into. She's a she to me, but she continues to grow and evolve and thrive. And there's a path for me to stay there and maybe one day be a public company executive if they go that path. And other alternatives would have presented themselves and did present themselves as like joining an earlier stage company as CEO. But it just never did feel quite right. So I was staying at Degree in my mind in perpetuity. But I had mentioned to a friend just like over dinner one day as they asked me like, hey, what's your long-term plan? I was like, well, I'll keep being an operator, love the role of an executive until such time where I feel comfortable enough, maybe I'll go do venture capital. And that individual had worked in venture capital and is very well connected in the Utah scene. And he let people know Kat wants to do this someday. And through him listening and then voicing my intent, I was able to get to know a lot of the firms that hadn't put money directly into Degree, but that were looking to expand their partnership. And Kickstart was one of them. So initially got to know the team back in 2019. It wasn't the right moment for me to step away from Degree, but by 2022 it was.
Yeah.
And so joined the team there. Why Kickstart? Because of the team, because of the stage in which they deploy capital. They're some of the first money in. They'll do pre-seed, they do seed. And one of the things that I don't think we talk about it enough, but like each stage of a venture-backed company, it's a vastly different business. It's a vastly different experience. Like just what you're optimizing for changes as you grow. And the part that I loved and felt just most fed by were those early stages, likely up to Series B. So Kickstart, gives me an opportunity to be engaging with founders at that stage and helping them to prepare for that next stage of growth. So I love it. That's me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have like 3 questions.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you feel like growing up on as a rancher, do you feel like that taught you like work ethic, like seeing a project through, that sort of thing?
Definitely. My executive coach and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Because workaholic was not a word that I knew until much later.
Gosh.
And being raised on a ranch, it was just 24/7.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
There's no such thing as workaholic. It's just you do the work that's necessary because people are counting on you. Animals are counting on you.
Yeah.
You have no choice. Like I didn't go on a vacation until after college. I didn't have a concept of what vacation was. I thought this is so strange. You can just leave.
You got to get up on Christmas morning and feed.
Yeah. Like they rely on you. And so I loved it though. Like the work just is fulfilling and purpose driven. And it did very much teach me hard work, but the counter to that was you're never off. And there's never a moment in which you quote unquote relax.
Yeah.
And so
I mean,
yeah.
You let your hair down at the county fair though, right?
So it's so funny because around our county fair up in Rich County is in August.
Yeah.
It is the week before school starts.
Same where I grew up. Yeah.
It's so perfect. And it's also the same time as you're harvesting hay.
Oh,
And so it
you're
was
doing
always
both.
this race to get the harvest to a point where you felt like you could go to the fair and not have things in any undue, nothing undone.
And
But,
see if the cowboys had grown 6 inches over the summer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then,
It was like you got to show off your new school clothes.
Yes.
I loved it. But yeah, county fair was about the only time we would let things down. And it just was, it did teach me hard work. My family they're still up operating that ranch and continue to live that lifestyle. And now I'm the person that gets to go on vacations.
Do you feel, okay, so now I have a question on that. Do you feel like boundaries, like for your work, have been hard to draw because of that?
Very.
Yeah.
Like if my executive coach were sitting here, he'd be like, it's so annoying how she just won't shut off. And then she complains that she's tired. It's not rocket science, but it's habitual that I was always just growing up on the ranch. If you're in a moment of relaxation, you know that something is dropping, something else can be done, something else needs you. And so growing up in that mode, of course, that mode continued as I went to college, as I started doing the work. And at a startup, that's a strength because there is something always on fire. You always do need to be doing something in order to grow. But again, the dark side of that is you'll burn out, you'll exhaust. And like if you live your life in such an unbalanced way, like things are going to happen if you live an unbalanced life.
I think one of the big differences too is I grew up around like in a huge farming community, but if you're not pulling your weight on the farm or on the ranch, it's like very evident and everyone feels it. Whereas in a startup situation, if you're not pulling your weight, people feel it, but it's hard to like pinpoint who it is.
Yeah.
And if someone is pulling their weight plus some, I've seen people like slack off around you because they're like, oh, she's doing it all, so it doesn't matter. Yep. And so the burnout, I think, is more real than in a situation like on the ranch. I'm sure you burn out on the ranch too, but in a startup, you're pulling almost for 3 or 4 people sometimes.
Yep, very much so. And so I'm so grateful for the way in which I was raised, and I admire people who do that work. And I know I would not be in the position that I'm at today without that, because it gave me not only drive and work ethic, but it also gave me stamina and the ability to push through and just I think the desire to grow things, to push things, to always be making something better. Like all of that I can trace back to my roots at the ranch.
Also, I think you're so good at making an impact in a male-dominated industry.
Oh, thank you.
What I've seen it, and I've seen you do it in like a way where you let your work speak for you, and I think that's probably comes from that too. I would bet.
Yeah, it's my dad. He would never say it himself, but he's done a lot of work to be excellent in ranching, and he would never ever voice that himself, but he's well respected, and you see that in the price that we get for our calves. You see it in the way that the community treats him and engages with him. So I very much had an incredible example in my father that you do the work and the work will speak for you. If you're having to speak for yourself, something might be at least worth diagnosing.
Oh, so smart. Okay, another question. Are you bilingual?
No. I can understand enough Spanish to get myself in trouble because I think I understand it, but I actually didn't.
Okay, because I feel like people who are really good at code, a lot of them are bilingual. Because code's just another language,
It is
right?
another language for sure. Yeah, it is another language. Maybe just my dad spoke Spanish growing up on the ranch. He would speak Spanish to us. So I think maybe that concept of another language and looking at things with a different perspective and understanding you can give commands in a different way than is native to you. Yeah, I definitely learned that from my dad.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I love this ranching stuff. When I first started Freshly Picked, because I grew up in Eastern Washington, southeastern Washington, huge farming community. Everyone either had orchards or farms or whatever. I grew up going to my friend's house. We'd go out and change water.
Yeah.
Right when we got home, and I remember when I started Freshly Picked, I'm like, I need a farm girl.
Truly though.
Yeah. Like a jack of all trades, someone who doesn't even care if they know how to do it. They'll just jump in and try.
Figure it out.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes, you have to. Yes. Yes, you get one command and you're like, okay, I'll do the best I can.
Yeah. I have this memory I think I was like 8 years old, but as soon as you could touch the pedals, you were doing if you touch the pedals, awesome. You can run that machinery. And so I was driving the rake, which is this, when you cut hay, it's like a massive lawnmower that as the hay is cut, it puts it into this line that's called a windrow. And the rake will put two windrows together so that the baler can come behind it. And that's what puts it into those square things that you'll see, those big square blocks of hay. And I was running the rake. But the thing about the rake that I was doing at the time is it had to be expanded and folded. And I'm 8 years old, and it's a big old piece of steel. And that steel is put on wheels to expand and to contract, but you had to push it. And I was not strong. I was 8 years old, and I'm I'm attempting to expand this rake for like an hour and a half and doing everything I can. And no traction whatsoever. And just exhausted because I had been attempting this for so long. And finally I see dust coming up, which means my dad's coming by to help. And I was like, thank goodness my dad is here. He's going to open the rake. And he looked at me and he looked at the rake and he got out of the truck, went to the back of the truck and was digging around because there's tools and everything back there. And he pulled out this metal bar and threw it at me and said, figure it out. I was like, okay, it's just like a pipe. And he was watching me. He's like, figure it out. So I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? Heck am I supposed to do with this thing? Depending on if we need that edit.
You're fine.
And he, I had no idea.
In Rich County, it's probably the same thing. Helen Heck, same thing,
same
right?
thing. No difference. So he comes over and he puts the pipe on the handle of this rake and then says, like, figure it out. And it's just the concept of leverage. If you put extensions on, like, it's easier to move things. And so I eventually got the rake open. He was guiding me, but never explicitly telling me what to do. But like what I take away from that was just like, you have to figure it out. You have to find a way. And there's people around you who are going to help you to find that. But he always set this great example of like, I'm not going to explicitly show you what to do, but I'll definitely lead you there. But at the core of it, the work has to be done and you have to figure it out. And that stuck with me, not just in the work that we did at the ranch, but as I've grown, that there's going to be people that will give you hints, but a lot of times you just got to figure it out because the work needs to be done. And it's okay. It's okay if you need a leverage bar. It's okay if you need a little bit of help. The ranch, I could have a ranch story for
everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so in building, degrade, or even just your whole work catalog, what's the scrappiest thing you've done?
You sent these questions ahead of time, and I thought about this a lot. And I mean, there's stories of staying in like the grungiest hotels.
Yeah.
Those are fun. When we were early and we hadn't really closed any revenue, this was ahead of raising our Series A, and like we were out of cash. Everyone's payroll was being paid for by David Blake's credit cards and some stock that he had sold. We were at that point where he was personally covering payroll with any and extending his net worth, right? Like it was that type of moment. But we had a very large enterprise in the pipeline. We were going on a sales trip out in North Carolina in Charlotte, and we stayed in this Airbnb like 6 of us that were there for this 2-day long sales meeting. And I'll never forget, like, one, we're all in this Airbnb, like it's almost familial at this point because we had to stay together all the time. And but what I remember about this Airbnb was like there was a creepy dollhouse, and like guaranteed this place was haunted. And like 3 of the guys are sleeping in one queen bed.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I was really cool. I got a couch to myself, right? Like, but like those moments, very scrappy of just like, no, what are boundaries? Like, we're all family. We're going to get this done. You know, lots of those stories. But the ones that made the difference for the company, and I think that helped me to grow the most, were when I knew something needed to be done. And it was to the point of desperation where I was like, no one but me will do this. And I'm going to do the risky thing and put myself out there in order to get the job done. Like, those are the things that stick with me, whether it was, you know, driving to the house of a board member to have a tough discussion, or dissenting with a client in a really tough moment. Like, I don't know if the definition of that really is scrappy.
I think so.
For me, it felt so, of just like, I don't feel completely comfortable in doing this, but I'm going to do it because it has to happen. Like, and those are the moments where I kind of found my voice and found my ability to stretch beyond what even others may have recognized in me. Yeah. And they were critical moments for the company. Like, if I hadn't done those things, we would have been on a different path.
I think scrappy is like clear inspiration plus critical moments plus doing whatever it takes.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think that's totally it. How, this isn't on here. So, how has it been being in the tech community in Utah as a woman, or just, I'm sure you've been in San Francisco, you've been in LA, you've been in all the places.
Yeah.
As a woman, have you seen it evolve?
I want to say yes, but I don't know. Like, it's evolved. Like, I oscillate between things are getting better and I'm so pissed off. Just depending upon the day and maybe what mood I'm in, or maybe just how, like, how amenable to the BS that I am. Like, that's how I'm going to tell you it is. But like, it has changed in a few ways. It's changed in that people at least recognize that there's something going on there, that like, we don't have equality. We don't have diversity. Often you will be the only female in the room. And now they recognize you're the only female in the room. And they're like, that's not good.
Right.
Like, that has changed. There's a recognition that a decade was not there. What hasn't changed is, I think, the meat behind why that matters, or the recognition around what happens when you're the only or the other in the room. That has not yet truly changed. But I do appreciate that at least now there is a recognition that we need more equality and diversity in order to accomplish goals. I think few of them could, them being anyone that isn't an only or another in a room very often. I think it would be hard for them to, with a straight face, tell you why it actually matters, outside of just like they know it needs to. And that's good. It's good that at least they are acknowledging and making a change.
Yeah.
But I think without true empathy of why, and understanding of why it matters, it's going to be tough to truly resolve the core issues. And we still have so much work to do there. So much work.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are all happy that we're on a path.
For sure.
Yeah. But what, in your mind, just so women who are listening, who are maybe having to like stand up for themselves or go to bat or whatever, what's the solution there?
I think just voicing it, which is really scary.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, it resides with people who have, I've had this conversation 2 or 3 times in the past couple of days, just like women who have visibility, who hold space, owe it to the rest of the women in the ecosystem and beyond to create more space for other people. And I think we do that by voicing the hard things. Like I now have a brand, and space and a reputation in which I can call things out that women who don't yet have that space can't. So like we owe it to them, but as we create that space for them, I hope they step into it and also voice things. So it's a bit of we have to create that space, but as we do so, like, please step into it. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to be able to make the traction towards the change that we need to. So I would say, one, the way that you're feeling is very real.
Yes.
Like, you are not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You are not making this up. Like, the amount of times I'm mentoring women and they say, like, if I can just push through, if I can just do all those things, like they'll maybe even just sense an issue that something isn't fair. And they will premise it with, I know I have to do X, Y, Z, and I know I could be better here. Like, they premise it with, if I can be perfect, then it's okay for me to have this issue. If I'm not perfect, I can't even raise it. So I would say, if you find yourself in that narrative, step back and analyze, is it you? Or is there something within the situation that needs to change?
Yeah.
And give yourself a little bit more space to be imperfect.
Yeah.
Rather than putting all of the pressure on yourself to be perfect.
Yeah.
Is one thing. Like,
well, and also what ends up happening there, I've seen, is people are like, oh, well, you're doing such a good job and you haven't seemed to have any complaints up until now. So where's this coming from?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I could do a better job given this situation changed or whatever it is. I've noticed too. So I think that there's two places. You're building out spaces now. We need women who are building the pipeline. Yeah. I've said this a million times. If you're a white male in Utah, you want to get into tech, the path becomes so clear for you. Like, it is practically laid out for you.
Yep.
You have a good idea. Okay, call this person, do this person, do that. If you are a woman or a person of color, it's very less clear. And so I think wherever you are in the pipeline, whether you're making space at the table or starting to carve out spaces for like a way for people to get access, like, start there. Do what you can where you are.
Yep. And I think for a lot of people that starts with you and space for yourself.
Yeah.
And just acknowledging the reality that exists, because I don't think it's intentional gaslighting, but it very much happens where we feel like, well, it's me. This isn't real. This situation isn't unfair.
Yeah, we gaslight ourselves.
We gaslight ourselves into it.
Yes.
Because the system is working for a lot of white men.
Yeah.
And so they don't see any issues with the system.
Why does it need to change?
Why does it need to change? And nothing's wrong. Nothing's going on. And it's not malicious. It truly isn't malicious. But I think how we interpret that with, like, if nothing's wrong with the system, something is going wrong with me, and I just need to mold to the system in order to abide it. But I think a lot of people burn out that way, and we see them fall out of the pipeline because they're exhausted, or they think that they aren't good enough to keep going.
Yeah.
And what's so hard is women hold themselves to this bar of accountability that their male counterparts don't. Their male counterparts feel safe leaning in before there's perfection.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, like, even just acknowledging that will make all of the difference in the world, because it's kind of like the Matrix. Once you take that, I don't know if it's I think it's the blue pill or the red pill. I don't know. Once you take the pill that reveals the reality, then you start to see it everywhere.
Yeah.
But that's a gift. That's not a problem. It's a gift that then you can see this different view of reality that then you can account for and manage to. So I would say we're going to make as much space for you as you can, but for you, like, really sit and acknowledge your reality so that we can account for it.
Yeah. I also find that when I acknowledge it, then it allows me to play within the rules, so then I can make changes and differences.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love it. Are you still coding? You still got little projects you do?
I tried to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I could get hired anywhere at this point because I'm so old school, but like that's scrappy. I could still
if you had to.
together.
I feel the same way about sewing. I could sew some stuff if I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to. But
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to, but like I can if needed. So I like it just because it exercises a part of my brain that doesn't get that much exercise anymore. So I try to at least stay apprised of and up to somewhat speed of how things are evolving, because things are just evolving so much on the software side.
So then how are you, because you're a builder, I'm assuming. So how are you being fulfilled right now in building?
What I love about venture capital is I get to help other people. So one of my core, like behind building, is this core principle of mine, which has taken me a long time to find, but it's impact. Like, why do I love to build? Because people will use the things I build. And why do I love that? Because it helps them in some way or another. But like, if I boil all those things down to their essence, I could say it's impact. Like, why do I love to build? It's to have an impact. And so I feed that beast through helping founders now. I feed that beast through mentoring people that I see raw talent in who might not even acknowledge it themselves. So that ability to support other people as they progress and find their own like boundless and limitless nature, that's how I feed the building beast.
Okay, building people. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, what is one lesson you learned early on in your career that is still true today?
It's you don't have to know everything.
Yes.
You really don't have to know everything. And going back to that, there's a pressure on women to be perfect. And we put that on ourselves, but others also put it on us. That if we aren't excellent, I think often will be overlooked. And that for me translated in this behavior of I must be perfect. And my mind interpreted perfect as I have to have a response for everything. And I'm articulate enough that I could fake it.
Yeah.
If I had to.
Oh my gosh, same.
Right? Like I'll fake it. I'll make something up and I'll say it so convincingly that people will be like, okay.
And that sounds good.
I guess I'm in on. And then if they know anything, they'll push on it. And I was so lucky to have mentors and leaders that saw me doing it, were smart enough to know when I was full of it, and they would call me on it and do it in an understanding and empathetic way of, I know what is happening with this behavior. Let's dig into that first of all, so that you feel safer in the spaces that you're in. And then also to root that behavior out in me. Yeah. Because
at the end of the day, it's not productive.
It's not productive at all. Like it inhibited my growth because I wasn't acknowledging the gaps that I had. It was detrimental to the teams that I led because if I don't know, like leading them blindly is not a productive course of action. And I learned that early as an individual contributor, and still to this day, especially being a venture capitalist, like we're digging into a different industry every meeting, and I could be taking 3 or 4 pitches a day. So I don't know so many things. Yeah. And so that's definitely a lesson that I learned early that still resonates with me to this day. And I see founders pitching, and I'll ask them questions just to see if they have an acknowledgement. It's okay if they don't know everything. So I think once you get to that moment of accepting that you don't, like that's beautiful, and it showcases to me someone who can now grow at a rapid pace because they're open to it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. So then from that lesson, or all the lessons you've learned, what's some advice you would give young Kat starting out?
To young Kat, just follow your instincts. You have good instincts.
Oh my gosh.
And don't, like, if you feel a certain way, like sit with it. Yeah. Figure out why. Because my intuition has tipped me off to things long before my busy mind, who's always doing work, who, can exhaust herself because I can be a busybody. Yeah. My intuition will be like, no, there's something you really need to be paying attention to. Yeah. And as I trace that back, like the biggest mistakes I've made in my career, the things that I have missed that could have been much different, if I had listened to my inner Jiminy Cricket, like it would have changed the game, and I could have done things so much faster. Like I wish I trusted my intuition more faster.
I loved what you said when we were talking about something unrelated. You said, what does my body know that I haven't caught up to yet? Yeah. And I do that all the time. Something's off. I'm like, I don't even know. And I could figure it out. I'm sure I'm smart enough, but I'm just going to say no right off the bat because this isn't right. And I don't know why.
Yeah. Something's up. And now I give myself the space that if I'm feeling something off, I'll say no. I'll figure out, just like, don't make any decisions even in this moment, and give quiet time and space to dig into what my body's telling me. It's telling me something's off, and diagnosing if that's work, if that's home, if it's whatever. It takes quiet and space and time. And I think what I do now that I just didn't do early on was, like, give myself the space to dig into it.
Because you always had to have an answer.
I always had to have an answer. Like, she was confident, but she was wrong a lot.
Okay, I have a question again that's not on here. What is the future of women in tech in Utah? What do you see coming down the pipeline?
I see two different paths, and I hope one comes to fruition and one doesn't. Like, the one path is women who mirror their male counterparts in order to succeed. And they do it inauthentically to the point where I think anytime you aren't being authentic, we don't get the best of you.
Yeah.
And my biggest concern for women in Utah is that they think in order to succeed, they have to mirror. And I see a lot of that happening. Yeah. And it breaks my heart a little because I know that they're doing it out of survival. Yeah. If nothing else.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. Yeah. I've done it. And the other path is we create enough space where the brilliance and just different perspective that a diverse set of people can bring to the table, and what that means for what they create and how they execute and how they build companies. It's going to look different, but I believe it will be better and greater than what we would have if we just mirrored what has been. Yeah. So those two paths, I do believe both have the potential to happen, but I think we are at a critical moment where people now acknowledge that something has to change. Yeah. We have to make it change in the right way so that people don't just pat themselves on the back and say, we're doing diversity. But instead what they're doing is forcing these women who want to succeed to be their clones and their mirrors. And those women don't get to live and lead authentically. Yeah. That's my biggest concern for Utah.
I've had a couple pregnant women work at Freshly Picked, and quite a few actually. And I will, hand on the Bible, swear this up and down, that there is not a more effective person on your team than a woman getting ready to go on maternity leave. Like, no one will get more done in a more creative, efficient manner than that woman. And I think if you're a tech executive, you need to look at, just as if you hired someone of a different religion and you need to have these times off, you need to look at women, especially women who are holding down the home and working, as a different kind of asset, and really use their strengths in a way and be creative around their work schedule and how they can bring impact to the team in a different way than a 9 to 5.
Yeah. One of the silver linings of the pandemic, and I do believe that there were many, is that across the globe, we had to recognize employees as human beings. Yeah. And organizations that have operated quite archaically now had to acknowledge the humanity of their workforce and account for the humanity of the workforce. Like, all of them would get up in PR and say, like, blah, blah, blah. But no, they actually had to implement practices that accounted for humanity. Yeah. But I don't want us to lose that, because if we push it to the next level, that means accounting for a holistic human being. And that's where diversity comes in. Like, diversity means there's differences. There's a difference in someone who is accounting for children at home and those that aren't. And both of them are valuable, and they bring different things to the table because of their perspectives. Yeah. So let's account for it and leverage it in the work that we ask them to do, and how we make space for them to do that work.
Oh gosh, I love it. Okay. What legacy are you trying to build?
Impact is a core value. Like I everything I do, I try to do in my work. I try to do through this lens of impact. And if when I'm gone, if I just made space for a few more people, then I'll be happy. If they said like, Kat made space for me, she sponsored me. She gave me room in which to be myself and to succeed. Like that's what I want to do for people. I just want to create space. And I think by doing that, like I'm not going to be the person that is like at the spotlight, but I get to be proud that I'm the person that helped them get there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay. We're going to do rapid fire questions.
Yes.
First of all, this wasn't on there either, but your skin is amazing. What are you
thank
using?
You. Skin Cuticles.
Okay.
The CHA ferulic, which I know I didn't say right. I've been doing that. And just the L'Oreal hyaluronic acid and Cetaphil.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have great skin.
It's Skin Cuticles.
Okay.
Thank you.
What was your first job?
My first job was a ranch hand.
Ranch. There we go. Worst job.
Ranch hand. Little column A, column B. Yeah, I mean it was tough work.
First, worst, best, all in one,
all
right?
in one. Like there's different parts of ranch work. Chasing cows is the bane of my existence. Like my family still to this day will be like, they've actually stopped asking me because I'm like, there's no way I'm coming up to do that. Because it's just stressful. Like it's animals. It's like it is a complex system. Things are going to go wrong.
Like when you move cows?
When you're moving cows.
Okay.
And
like on a horse.
On a horse out on the range. Like the stuff you see in movies.
It feels romantic.
It's
not
anything but that, especially when there's calves.
So you don't look hot on a horse.
Oh no. Like
you're just sweaty and gross.
You're sweaty, you're gross, you're hot. You have to get out at like 3 a.m. because once the heat of the summer comes, the cows are too tired to move. The mom cows don't want to leave their babies. And if you separate them from their babies, like everything goes horribly, horribly off track. And you're doing it on horseback.
So it's not like Yellowstone.
No, it is not. And the amount of screaming and yelling and cursing at each other, which ultimately formed quite a bond amongst the siblings and my family at large is, I mean, if you were to go with no exposure, you would think these people hate each other and like they might kill each other before the end of this, like daily. I can't with chasing cows.
So we're done with that job.
Yeah.
What does your typical day look like?
I'm an engineer, so like I like to structure stuff.
Yes.
Like, I'm up at 5. I work out till 6. The baby's usually up between 6 and 6:30. If I can meditate before then, like I'm super proud of myself. But I used to do like meditation from 6 to 6:30, but now it's just like try to sit and think and like don't have my phone out. And then my kids are up. My 7-year-old has decided that like she's a 6 a.m. waker. Which is great. So I'll just make sure she and the baby are settled. And then 7 to 8, we're getting them off to school. I drop them off to school at 8, and then I'm driving into the office on most days. And what I love about this job in venture capital is like every day is different. One day I'm doing a board meeting. One day I'm a therapist to maybe a founder, maybe someone who is thinking about founding a company. And I'm getting pitches from people with new companies, like at least 1 or 2 of those, ideally a day. Like there's so many people coming with companies. I love it. I thought, I'll get 1 or 2 pitches a week. No, it is daily. People Kickstart invests in the Mountain West. These are local people coming up with venture backable ideas. And most of them have a significant amount of traction. It's really impressive. But then, I mean, the fun part of it, which as I describe my job to my friends, is I always have at least a brunch, lunch, or dinner a day. Like the amount of networking that's happening in this job is a lot. So, yeah, my week just looks quite glamorous from the outside because I'm just networking and getting to know great people, whether those are potential limited partners or existing limited partners or founders or people who I know are very influential in the ecosystem that I want to get to know and gain their trust. Like it's the meals and the networking are a big part of what I do every day, which is awesome.
And you have a stay-at-home husband?
No, he is a president of a software company.
Oh, geez, you guys.
Yeah, we have a nanny, and she's family. She's been with us for 8 years.
Yeah.
I could not survive without her. She is such a critical part of our family.
Wow, you guys are busy.
Yeah.
Are you early bird or night owl?
Yes.
Both.
And then I crash on like every third Thursday.
Okay.
My husband would love it if I just slept. Like my ideal schedule, if my coach is listening, I go to bed at 10 and I'm up at 5.
Got it.
Right, Brad? Yes, that's what I do. But realistically, there's just never enough hours in the day, and I end up burning the candle at both ends until I burn out, and that usually happens every third week.
Okay. And then you just like take a nap, or
I'm just grumpy, and then I sleep. Usually I just have to sleep in that next Saturday. I'll sleep too much. I'll sleep in on Thursdays, and then Saturday is just I sleep.
I sleep all Saturday. Yeah, I love it. People are like, what do you do for fun? I'm like, sleep. I really wish I was a work hard, play hard girl, but I'm work hard, nap hard.
Oh, same. When people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, what? That sounds exhausting. Like I watched Real Housewives of Salt Lake City last night, and that was fantastic.
Okay, there you got something in.
Yeah, it's my me time.
There you go.
Just like the no brain required TV. That's my hobby.
Okay. Girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight. Pick one.
Gaslight.
Okay. Oh, what is the worst you've been gaslit in your career?
Oh my goodness. How candid should I be? I'm trying to think. Like, what's the line of?
Let's keep names and maybe businesses out of it. Yeah. This is gonna be good.
It's so bad. It's just I'm trying to think how to say this in a way that, like, there's always this balance in telling these types of stories of, you don't want to scare people. You don't want to, but I think that's why it's the worst gaslighting is like, I don't want to scare people. And I think when people hear these types of things, they're like, is it just a nightmare everywhere? And am I going to have to deal with this? So like, yes, you probably will have to deal with this. But the worst I've been gaslit is getting senior in leadership as a woman, at least at this point. Like, you're going to be with men all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those men are going to not appreciate that you actually should have a seat at the table. They're going to assume that you're only there because you are a woman and diversity matters. And that, like, you are a diversity hire, and it doesn't matter what you do, how you execute, how you prove yourself. Like, that individual will never change their perspective. And I was in a situation where that was very much the case, and they actually got drunk and said it to me once. And they said, what's it like being a woman in tech? And I was like,
From a man.
From a man.
Got it.
And I was like, after we had been golfing all day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And he's like, just what's it like? Because, you know, you get jobs you don't deserve. You're in positions where, like, you're just there because we needed a woman. Like, what's it like? And he was drunk. But I was like, well, I know what you.
Yeah, but it feels like truth serum.
Yeah,
in that case.
what I had always assumed.
Right.
And the gaslighting part was like, I just kind of was like, well, I am lucky to be presented a lot of exciting opportunities, you know, is what I responded. And I don't think he would ever remember it. So, like, that's the worst, like the most,
sheesh, just
like the worst. But, like, I think that plays out in a bunch of ways where it's just like, you finally get the courage to voice it. And they're like, it's just in your head.
Right.
It's not real. If you would just push through it, that wouldn't be an issue. You're allowing something to inhibit you that shouldn't.
Right.
And it's like, no, like what? If I am excellent in all of these ways, you see me excelling, and yet when I voice something that seems a little bit off, you want to be trusted, you want to be heard, you want to be believed. And mine was never like explicit harassment or explicit assault in any way, but it was like the little digs and biases that then ultimately eat at you. Like those are just so hard because you're always questioning, like, when does it get to the point where I need others to solve for me?
Yeah.
And what do I need to do on my own? And I think for most of the time, if it's not explicit assault, no one's going to help you.
Right. Right.
That's what's really tough.
Right. Like, just get your work done.
Just get your work done. Just push through it.
Okay. We need to end on a happy note.
I know. Sorry.
And it's all right. I hate that you had to go through that, but I was just thinking, like, Kat Kennedy crawled so all you girls out there could watch.
I don't know.
Some of it is tricky, but okay.
Sorry.
Good.
It took us down there.
No. And I don't want to say it was I'm not mad about it. I think like your experience is so valid, and there are girls out there who are experiencing this right now. And I feel like you're not alone. Like,
yeah,
what you're experiencing is real.
Yeah.
Find someone to help you.
Yeah. And like don't
believe it.
Yeah, don't believe it. And I think the part that hurts me the most about it is I tried so hard to push through it.
Yeah.
And as I have space, just like through the years, as I've had time to have space away from it, like the thing that is so hard is like me pushing through that in a senior position made it harder for the women around me and who were not as senior as me. Like, I had the ability to push through it. Yeah. How many women were treated that same way and quit?
Yeah.
Because how that presented externally was everything was fine.
Yeah.
Kat's just pushing through. She's she's excelling.
Yeah. And
the women who weren't in that same position, like I didn't give them any space.
Well, and you and I have been in meetings where someone's asking for change or someone's kind of holding their hand up. And we've seen it both ways, right? Like we've seen it where the environment's the issue. And then I've also seen it where the employee's the issue.
Yeah.
And as a manager, you think back to those moments and the microaggressions that are happening in those moments where you're like, I don't want to be the problem.
Yep.
And if two people say I'm the problem, then does that make me the problem? And absolutely not. You're not the problem.
You're not the problem.
No.
Yeah. And I think just watching for, I think we always assume that things are rosy for other people and that we're the only people who are dealing with anything. That's never true.
No.
And I think you can find allies by just watching and not assuming that everyone is in like a hunky-dory state. Like that's how you're going to find the people that will help you, that you can talk to. I think it's just by looking for them.
Yeah.
Looking for them in a little bit different way. Yeah. But like I share that story not because, I mean, it didn't hamper my career. It didn't change anything for me. But what sticks with me is if I was dealing with that, like, oh my gosh, what must others be dealing with?
Who don't have the voice.
Who don't have the voice.
Or even the wherewithal to like structure what's actually happening to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So just like if you feel like it's happening, like it's at least worth clicking into. And I think if we don't click into those things, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Kat.
Sorry, that was so heavy. We need a happy story to end on.
Okay. Well, dark hair or blonde hair? You're dark now. You were blonde.
Change all the time.
What do you
I
prefer?
get so bored with my hair. So I'm going, well, I'm not going. So why do I go blonde? It was to blend the gray.
Yeah, so much
I
easier.
have this headband of gray hair, and the sad little secret is that as I have left operating, the gray is going back brown.
Stop it.
I know. And I still have a little bit of like salt and pepper sprinkled through, but that headband of gray, it was a stress induced gray. Like it was to the point of my hair was going gray because I was feeling so much stress in operating. And so why brown now? I love brown. I wish I could stay brown. And now I can, at least for the time being, because that band of gray, which was so hard to keep up with, is going away.
Yeah, most women, older women that you know, are blonde because it hides the gray easier.
It's so much easier.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the salon every 4 weeks.
Such a delight.
Yes, exactly. Okay, Kat, thank you for coming on. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you.
You're one of my
too.
favorites.
I need to do like a Susan pitch because I don't think you would do this for yourself. But like, I don't know, like we need to shout you from the rooftops, just the example that you are and the space that you have created. Like everyone that I talk to, if your name is ever spoken, it is with I love her. She's done so much for me. Like I hope that you know how much you are seen and how much we love you.
You're so nice. Thank you.
I mean every word of it.
You're the best. Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.